Welcome back to another episode. My name's Emery Wolf. Joining me is
Nick Lamb.
And this is Just Two Camera Guys. Nick, jumping into it, we worked together for like a month and a half straight,
Yeah.
and then we didn't talk for a month after, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it went a while. Because, then when we did call each other up after the phone, it was like, wow, it's 11 o'clock at night. I looked at my phone. It was an hour and 45-minute conversation. It was just like, what?
Yeah. And yeah, we were due to make another one of these things. But with that said, I kind of want to talk about that time period. Actually, it's funny, I'm talking about that time period. There's been a billion things happen in the camera world. And all I want to know, Nick, is how was the WHL Hub for you?
It's exhausting. It was, it felt like I was working on a movie again. Incredibly exhausting.
Do you want to kind of tell people like your role, what you did, and yeah, I guess that time frame, how much you were actually working?
So yeah, well, basically, I don't know. My role's always the same. It's whatever the boss wants me to do. So it's really what it comes down to. My favorite.
That's everybody's role, right?
Yeah, like my preferred job. I love doing the tight follow for hockey games, where you're the close-up camera and you get to follow the puck around really. I don't know what it is. There's something. And now you do the job too. Like we both kind of do tight follow, but there's something that's slightly different about doing that job. I don't know. Do you find that when you're doing tight follow, it's kind of different than doing the other jobs?
It's more engaging. So like, say you're doing a camera one where you're just following that game back and forth, like you watch every game on. It's great for the audience. As a camera person, it gets like, a little bit, I don't want to say boring because it's not like you're out of touch with it, but it's boring in comparison for myself anyways. But you pick up a lot more of what's going on when you're at that camera because you literally see everything. For the hub itself, so to give people an idea what I was doing, so basically Thursday to Sunday, every day there was my shift, and I was on camera too. So if you watch the hub, all those like close-up highlights would have been from me, unless they were clearly from our corner cams, which by the way, like our corner cam guys were words can't even express how good they were. Sean Simons, who I wanted to give the Iron Back Award to. I think he worked every game except for 2 or 3, and that was it. And then the other guy on my shift with me was Jonathan Guinard, who unfortunately left us. He moved back, I believe, to Ontario. But just a great guy, always fun, especially to make some Montreal Canadian jokes. Look who's joking now. Whatever, John.
His shots were so good, though.
John improved tenfold.
He actually made Sean step up his game. His shots were so good.
Yeah. So your job, Nick, when I was there, you were back in the trailer.
Yeah, in the trailers, and then just doing instant replays, and then the replay guy cuts together the highlight packs at the end of the night. So the replay guy was, in this specific instance, the last guy to leave.
Yeah. And then so Thursday to Sunday, you're in the trailer. Monday to Wednesday, you were shooting camera 2.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple days there that I kind of relieved you just
so you could
get some breaks.
So I didn't go crazy.
It was a lot of times. I know the one week, just adding like my own day job and this together, I put in, I think it was 91 hours in a week. So yeah,
wow.
It was a lot of work, but hey, paid off my boat.
Well, that's good. Good, you got the boat done. I can't believe you took out a loan to buy a boat.
Yeah, and Nick, this isn't about me. This is about you. I think the other positive thing we should look at is you're still married.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I don't know why. Like, I think it's just getting older, Emery. It's not that you can't work as much, because you can actually. I found I can work more, but there's just other things that more work interrupts and comes in conflict with, and it just makes it slightly more difficult.
Especially for you, like when you do have your wife and kid at home, like joking aside, I know I make fun of it, but it that does like it takes its toll on that. And whereas myself, my daughter's out of the house, so I don't have to worry about her. I can basically do what I want. And honestly, for me, uh, having hockey back and going to the rink every day, I was actually like a little bit energized. Like I was almost like waiting for you to call and be like, hey, can you work this day? Like I was kind of like, yes, yes, I can. I was also thinking about that prospect of paying off my boat, so that
Yeah.
also helped. but but yeah, it's a different feel. But I mean, it still wore on me. And like for pretty much the week after, I didn't talk to other people. I just like hermited in my house, watched Netflix and movies, and yeah, just didn't want anything to do with anyone
That's
else. And then I went
funny.
fishing.
That is funny, just because after I kind of like phoned up all my Moose Jaw friends and got everybody together as much as we could. Um, and yeah, that's funny because I would just naturally assume that you're a little bit more outgoing than me, but
Yeah, no, the big thing for me was I was really concerned about taking that fishing trip the following week after, and just like that. Actually, I did talk to people that week, but it was my friend of mine who I did go fishing with, and it was sorting all that out, and then making sure my family knew I was leaving and going up north, and literally not going to talk. So I almost went like 2 weeks without talking to anybody else, and then when I got back, I ended up calling people and talking to people and doing some stuff.
yeah, yeah. I tried calling you, and your phone went like straight to voicemail, and then Matt actually texted me the one day, and he was like, "Where's Emery? What's going on?" And that was when I texted you. I was like, "Are you fishing?"
It's really funny. It like didn't even tell anybody. Just was like, I'm out. See ya. Another thing I think we should discuss real quickly too is talking about the drag of the hub. And so myself, I took the relaxed approach. You couldn't. How's that going? Like, is it dragging on? Is it wearing on you? How are you doing with all that?
No, it's fine now. I don't know. I think you know how it is. A couple days later, you're fine. Didn't get a nice fishing trip like you, but I think I would have found that more exhausting than refreshing anyway. So, um, yeah, looking forward to summer here. Should be good.
Cool. And things are going good with Leroy and Leroy. Like that's what I meant by that. Like, are you getting, how's that going? You
Oh
guys
yeah, yeah,
basically in that month you doubled your.
yeah. I think that was maybe partially what made everything so exhausting as well, because Leroy and Leroy started doing really, really good, and we've got a good schedule with Leroy and Leroy for the most part, where we'll film either on a Saturday or a Sunday, and the other guy, he's a radio show host, so he's used to getting up at 4 o'clock every morning or whenever, so it's no worries for him to get wake up at 8 and go start shooting till noon or something. But yeah, it's nice to have that schedule worked out. The other thing, yeah, like, so radio guys, they're used to doing everything live, so you don't run into the usual stuff when you're working with more movie people aren't used to the live, so they'll make more mistakes. And so with him, a lot of times you just do one take and it's good.
Cool. Yeah, it's another thing too. Like, I don't know if people can really comprehend what it's like to have that much action going on around you all the time. Myself, it sort of drains me, and I don't enjoy it as much as actually doing the work, and I would rather just focus on that side all the time.
Are you talking the social media interaction going on all the time?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a cool thing. It's something that I wouldn't want to um, either take for granted or dismiss as a bother, because it's really fortunate that we get to have that following and that interaction, and it's really cool to have all of that. Now, I see what you're saying though, because at a certain point you can't keep up with everything. So some stuff does have to go by the wayside, or hope that the other person picks up some of the slack with that.
Yeah, it's a tough and strange business that we are in this digital age. Well, Nick, now that we're caught up, I think we should get in to our guest today. The other thing is I don't do like much scripting for this show, so this is about the most work I've ever put in for one of these shows, and it's the introduction of our guest tonight. So I wrote it down. I'm going to read it. I hope everybody's prepared for this. I'm going to get close to get that like nice mic sound. From the rolling fields in the south to the boreal forest in the north, Saskatchewan's food bounty overflows. As a camera guy, producer, and director, our next guest has spent the last few years tasting the best the province has to offer and telling that story. From the field to the plate journey and the people behind it all. But this isn't their stories. It's Adrian Halter's.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it would be pretty fun to interject your own stuff into it there. And, you know, maybe to give yourself a better introduction, why don't you tell us what you do, tell us about your company and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a wannabe filmmaker since I was a teenager. And so when that led me to move from a small town in rural Saskatchewan to Regina. I went to the U of R and graduated with a film degree there, and then started working in the TV industry. And then that kind of dried up a little bit. And then I started working in kind of the corporate arena, the glamorous world of real estate photos and video tours. And from there, I kind of graduated to doing kind of corporate video work like that. And that kind of led to me being, really passionate about documentary filmmaking. And so, I started a company, just didn't do a whole lot with it until about 2015. And then in 2015, I started doing a lot of marketing, corporate videos, recording presentations, AGMs, that kind of thing. And then that kind of grew to doing some mini docs and some kind of higher end work to the stuff that I like to focus on now, which is, more lengthy storytelling and having a bit more time to spend with people and their stories and kind of share those through video.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, that little intro I did is actually the intro you guys did for Flat Out. It's Flat Out Food on
Flat Out
City
Foods,
TV.
the show.
It's based off this book by Jen Sharp, Flat Out Delicious. So you're working with Jen, and yeah, like I said, it's on City TV. What was that whole process like for you? Because I think you guys got some money from Sask Film, and you had to go through like a whole process for that. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So the two people that I kind of deal with the most at City TV are Joanne McDonald and Will Dixon. And Will was actually one of my sessional professors when I was in university. So my relationship with him goes back, over 10 years now. And I think the very first pitch I gave him was in 2014. So I would just keep coming at him every year with new pitches, new ideas. And, at that time, I was still, I had more hair and no kids and a little younger. And, I just knew that I really wanted to do that, but it was like a lot of like reality stuff was what I was kind of pitching. Cause that was a lot more, what they call them docu soaps was a little more in vogue back then. And so I just kept pitching and pitching and pitching, and eventually they caved and said yes.
Kind of two questions. How did you get connected with Jen then?
Yeah, so I've been doing work at Agribition since about 2013, just all different sort of video stuff for them. And Jen was actually hired to run some of their social media accounts. And I think that was in 2018. So we met then, and we just kind of stayed in touch a little bit. And she had written this article about this man who was born in Saskatchewan, moved away, came back, and he kind of had this kind of almost like a retreat for all sorts of people that were, had kind of rough backgrounds, people that were dealing with drug addiction. And he kind of had this safe haven for them where he'd provide work for them. And they had like this really crazy place up by Turtle Lake. Like they were baking bread in stone fired ovens and making chocolate from scratch and this whole thing. And so Jen had written an article on Francis, and I kind of was working with Jen on that project. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, that project kind of fell through. There was some health problems with the owner, and it just kind of went away. And through that, we got to talking about all sorts of different projects. And I had an idea for a TV show that I kind of pitched once, and no one seemed to like it except for me. But it was just a show about it was like Chef's Table, but just about the ingredients. So like get no chefs, no anything, like just an ingredient. And it was like lemons and things like that, things that weren't here. And then Jen was writing this book where she had just spent a year traveling across Saskatchewan and knew all these people, all these artisans, all these chefs, all these farmers. And we kind of started talking about this idea. And that's when it really clicked. Like you can't have a show about a thing without people, right? Like that's what draws everyone in. It's personal stories and personal connection. And from there, we kind of developed that idea, pitched it to City. They gave us some funding to create a demo. And then from that demo, we were able to kind of submit that as our creative piece and our material as to what the show might be like. And then once we received it's actually weird. You don't really get a green light until very late in the process. Like we got like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like, yeah, we're going to do the show. But then, have to do applications and set stuff up at Creative Saskatchewan. And kind of the most onerous thing of the whole thing is the CMF, so the Canada Media Fund. Like that's where the most work comes as a producer, is dealing with them and getting all your stuff lined up for them. They're a pretty big funder on our show, so there was a lot of work going into getting that. And yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work and late nights, and I'm sure my wife can attest to the fact that I neglected a lot of things around here trying to get that stuff done, but it got done, and we made a show, and yeah, I'm really proud of it.
I think that's one thing like people don't understand about working in this industry is just how much work it actually is to pull something off. And that's why these things cost a lot of money, is because just for an example, like how long did you actually spend working on it? Was it over a year?
Oh yeah. So we would have started developing our pitch materials for the demo in like spring 2019. And I started other materials before that in the beginning of 2018, before I started working with Jen and her on like focusing it more on the stories in her book. It's like, yeah, it was a 2-year process.
Yeah. And all of that too, like you're basically not getting paid until you start shooting almost.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Emery.
Which makes it even way tougher and like harder to pull off.
So I'm kind of wondering, you said that a lot of them got rejected at the start. So what made you keep going with that? Because like I look at your stuff and it's stunning. Like your B-roll, your interviews, everything. It just is like it looks so good. So you had to know that you had good stuff, but what made you keep going after this? And how did you keep going after it?
I like, without getting into this part too much, like I was with another company, like I was just kind of like subcontracting with them. And I really wanted to do, like, I knew I wanted to get more into documentaries, right? And that avenue wasn't really there with them. And we tried to make it fit and it just didn't work. And like, I just knew that that's where my passion was. And it was just going to take a lot of time to get there. And so it was like one of those things, like every time you get like a little bit of success, you're like, man, this is it. Like, it's going to be so easy from here on out. And then it's like 20 roadblocks hit you. Right. And so I got this, like a micro doc, I guess, like a 3-minute doc with CBC Arts. And I was like, I've been on my own for like a year. I'm doing this thing with CBC, like Discovery called me to like film a piece for them. And I'm like, look at like this is all just, I got it made in the shade. And then no one calls again for 2 years. Right. And luckily I had, like, with Halter Media, we have, a lot of great corporate clients that let me kind of have a lot of creative freedom. And so like, that was really fulfilling. And then, the doc stuff just kind of came. If it came, it came. And if it didn't, it didn't. And each year was kind of a different year. Right. some years there was, 2 or 3 kind of small projects, and then other years there was nothing. And I just knew I really wanted to do it. And, it's funny with like streaming, because I know like you guys talk about like the new normal, like a lot of like the new tech age, right? And how things have changed. And Nick, I was watching one of the episodes where you were like, I haven't watched Netflix in a year. But it was a lot of like those shows like where you just started seeing a lot more documentary. And it was like, you know what? I think there's a lot more of an appetite for this, right? Like Saskatchewan and Canada, like there was a time when that's what we did, was documentary, like that. Those were our projects. And then no one kind of, it fell off the wayside. A lot of people want to do the stuff that they want to like, oh, like this could be like Vancouver or Toronto. And one of my favorite lines from the show is in the final episode. And one of the chefs, Thane from Hearth in Saskatoon, he's like, we don't want to be Saskatoon, or we don't want to be Vancouver or Toronto. Like, we're Saskatoon. That's what we want to be. That's what we should aim for. And for me, like as a filmmaker, there's so many great things here that we can talk about. Like, let's not try to pretend like we're New Jersey, right? Like where it's like, oh, Regina could be the backdrop of like it'd be like, part of New Jersey, maybe. Come on. And it's like, why can't it just be Regina? With all the documentary content that was coming out, it kind of maybe motivated me a little bit more, knowing that, okay, there is an appetite for this, and it doesn't have to be Ice Road Truckers or something like that. Like, it can be real documentary storytelling, people being honest, not scripted or, pseudo scripted. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you touch on one thing I was going to actually touch on, so I don't really think I need to, but Mark from Rebellion also basically said, like, that's one thing we do in Saskatchewan all the time is like, we don't promote ourselves, even though we're like really great here. So I was going to ask you about that, but you basically touched on that. The other thing, actually, I do want to kind of twist on what you just said is why do you think it is that like Saskatchewan creatively we do lean towards that documentary more often? Myself, I'm the same way. Like, I went through film school, I could care less about anything. I thought making documentaries would be really cool, and then I got to do some and work on some shows, and it was like a lot of fun and experiences I'll never take back. Like, but what do you think it is about Saskatchewan that puts us in that mindset?
Like, this is one of those things where you can say it, you can paint a picture in really broad strokes, and it doesn't cover everyone, right? Like, there's tons of filmmakers that are here, like Lowell Dean, like he does such an amazing job with his projects, right? And his are, mixed genre crossover, and like he has a thing with that, and he does it really well. So it doesn't cover everyone, but like for me, the way I look at it is there's like this humbleness, and it's probably one of the things that holds people back a bit in Saskatchewan, where it's like, we don't want to brag about ourselves. We don't want to, kind of step too far outside the box. We want to kind of just go about our business and, be honest and true to what we do and how we do it. And I think documentary is like a great avenue for that, because it kind of represents who we are in a way, right? Like, you can get a more personal connection with documentary, I find, in my opinion, than you can with narrative.
Is that what sort of drove you to documentary then yourself? Like, what was your inspiration for documentary then?
Yeah, so it's, when I was a 14-year-old kid and I wanted to be a movie director, I wanted to be like Stanley Kubrick or Steven Spielberg, right? Like, I wanted to be doing like big sci-fi stuff and doing all the great stuff that they do. And there was a moment and it probably started in film school. I took the documentary class, like what everyone does. I think it's like 201 or something like that. And then a part of that, we had, we started watching all these great documentaries from like the 60s from the NFB. And I think that really kind of started it. And I don't know, it's probably a mix of things, like wanting to tell real stories and being genuine with stuff, but then also like just not having the financial wherewithal to do a narrative piece. Like, it's maybe a little easier to start in documentary, and that's maybe how things started for me. And then it ended up being something that I'm much more passionate about right now. Like, I have no desire to go do like a narrative short or anything like that. Like, I just want to keep working in documentary.
So with that mindset, is there going to be a season 2 of Flat Out Food?
Yeah, we start rolling July 19th.
That's exciting.
Oh, nice.
Is there
Yeah.
anything you can give us as a teaser from that? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. There's I think with season one, maybe it was easier in the sense that we got to go to like a lot of the places that were, maybe if you're not from the city, like if you're not from Regina, maybe you don't know Rebellion, but Rebellion's big and popular and successful. So like we kind of like for the first season got a lot of those places. So in season two, I think what you're going to see is a lot more places that you probably didn't know about in towns that you weren't aware had stuff going on. There's a lot going on, right? You just got to look for it.
There's always something to do.
There we go. That's it. There's always something to do. I butchered it.
Yeah. Actually, with that in mind, then too, how do you guys up your game? Like, what are you doing camera wise, or even production wise, to just up your game and up that ante on season 2 to make it better?
Yeah, so like, I'm super fortunate to have two of, in my opinion, two of the best. There's lots of great camera people in Saskatchewan, and just I'm fortunate to work with some of the best in Adam Burwell and Preston Canick. And, we've had lots of discussions about what we can do differently, right? And so much of it starts with them. It starts with how we're setting up these shots. It starts with the locations. We work with a great team with Dave Tomiak. He's based in Vancouver to do the color on the show. And it kind of all comes together to make the look. But yeah, we've had lots of discussions about how to up it. Part of that starts with a little upgrade in camera gear. We used some Fujinon lenses last year, and we're going to go with the Ingenue lenses, which they use on, a lot of big time shows. So we're investing a little bit of our budget into that to kind of allow us a little bit more of, change the look just a little bit. We're still going to focus a lot on wides, and we're going to have a lot of aerials featured in the show. But yeah, that's just one thing. We're still talking about how to change it, but then at the same time, you don't want to change it too much, right? Because we've received such great feedback, and now we have like a solid system, right? Like we know how to make a show that looks like that. So we don't want to change it too much, but I think you'll see a few different tricks that we're going to try to kind of up our game for sure.
That counts you out, Emery. Those lenses don't autofocus, so you're. Unfortunately, it's just not going to work this season.
No, actually, if you ever need a time lapse guy, yeah, I've been kind of making this weird transition from video to photo more, and it's just I don't know why I enjoy it a lot more than video. Like, I know why. It's because I'm lazy, and video is just a lot of work, and I've done it for too many years that it's just like born on me, and I'm just like, no, I'm doing things simple now.
There's with photography, like it's just you can barely compare the two a lot of the times, right? Because like you think of some amazing photos that you can take, and it can be kind of like an overcast day, but you can bring so much out of it can be like a flat overcast day, and you can still pull a lot out of the clouds and add that detail, and you can create something really awesome. But then if you're like shooting video, it's just kind of like some days it's just blah, like there's nothing there, but you can get a lot out of photos. But I say like half the job is just showing up. Like you just got to get to a good location, right? Like that's the best time lapses start, before the sun rises. Not everyone wants to get up and do that. Not everyone wants to drive around to abandoned farmyards or old churches, right? Like that takes, you got to get up and go and do it, right?
Yeah. My counterpart in doing those things, actually kind of a funny story. The first time we ever did it, we set out, we were going to leave Regina, I think at 4:30 a.m. And I'm not much of a morning person, but she was talking with her husband that night, and she's like, I don't think he's going to show up on time. He's going to sleep in. And her husband's like, no, this is what he does. He'll be on time. And then I showed up on time, and she was like, Jesus, I did not think you were going to show up on time. So it was kind of funny, I thought. Yeah. Another question for you, Adrian, just kind of gear wise. I know like a lot of the shows set like requirements for cameras. Did you guys have that? Like the city set something for you, or is there some flexibility there?
No, they like the only thing is with the deliverables, right? So we're just delivering 1080 2997, and so we shot everything in 2398 because of course we would. That actually caused some hiccups to do it because we had to do the captions ourselves. And so there was like these hiccups we had to work through with the caption process. Cause like, do you put the captions in first and then like export a file and then convert it to 2997? Or do you convert the file first and then add the captions in later? But then the captions weren't lining up because we had like uploaded the 2398 versions. So it was getting into post, but
so what did you go with?
So we received our color masters and then input all our titles and then output that at 2997 and then added our captions to the 2997 QuickTime file and then output it at MXF for final delivery.
That makes sense. So how do you, like, because most of the stuff that I do is a lot of one-man band stuff where I'll get the stuff, I'll color it, do that. Did you do like a pre-color or would you send the footage off and then see how it looks from there? I'm just curious about the process, how that worked with a little bit of a delay, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so we started like post kind of unofficially started halfway through production. And so we were sending frames to the colorist so that we could kind of agree upon a look. And then we kind of thought we had something pretty solid, but it was pretty dramatic. Like they were really pushing it. And in the still frames, it looked good. But then once we like started getting some of the episode corrected, we sent off clips. It didn't quite play the same way as the still frames did. So then we like worked through, and once we kind of got through the first episode where we were like, okay, like I was really happy with it. Our DP was happy with it. Then I sent it off to City because I was like, what if they hate it? And we just like have to pay them to do all this work and no one, they're like, go back and redo everything. And yeah, everyone was really happy with the look. So once we kind of
they were blown away when they saw it.
Once we got that first episode done, then things went pretty smooth after that.
Cool. So with the show too, you end up having a lot of jobs. If you watch the titles there, you're like the producer, you're the director, you're the whatever else. Basically your name comes up 26 times. It's not an overestimate. I counted.
No, it's in there a lot, and I don't know. I'm an ego maniac, I guess. I don't know.
Which kind of a twofold question, but which
I did that job. I want credit.
You know what's funny is during film school, I used to get mad at that, like how many times I would enter my name. I'm like, this is stupid, and my credit ended up just becoming like one credit did by and my name.
I like that.
Anyway, so back to the question is, out of all those jobs that you do for the show, what's the hardest job? And on the opposite side, what's the most fulfilling job?
Good questions. So first of all, I'm also the executive producer of the show, and that
I want to be referred to as.
that credit was never in any of the other versions until we had one too many credits. We forgot one and we had to add someone in, and then I didn't want it off balanced. So because it's like 2, 2, 2, and then it was just 1, and I was like, that looks so stupid. Just throw one more up. And so Tim Thurmeyer, the editor, he put that in. Like I didn't. So that's why my name partly why it comes up so much. The most challenging job, and like I would have never thought it would be the way it is, because I think like the role of producer is one where when like you're in film school and you're like, oh, like you're the money person, you got to find the money, and then you just walk away. And like I'm still working on season 1 as a producer. Like I still have work to do, and I will probably until the end of 2021. Like there's always things that come up. Like you have to negotiate with people, everyone's contract. You have to do that. You're working with the funders, and then you're ensuring that you're hitting all your deliverables, because it's not just the show. Like we have a digital media component that we provide as well, and you can find that on the City TV website. But there was also, we had to provide a bunch of stills, and we had to provide, we had to ensure everyone has their Cavco numbers, and like all these things I had no idea what they were May last year. I had to deal with. And so producer has been the most challenge. It's the most work, and it goes on and on, right? The director, once the show's done and delivered, director goes home, they're done, right? But then on the flip side of that, the most fulfilling was directing. Like it was pandemic aside, like we were lucky that we filmed it when we did, because like it was before the mask mandate and before the numbers got really high and the cases were high. And, people people were concerned at the beginning. And then we had like this summer last year where in Saskatchewan, it was like, looking back now, like you look back at how it was then, like it was so chill compared to what we had, early this year and, over the course of winter and stuff. So COVID aside, directing was so much fun. Like got to go to these cool locations. I got to meet these awesome people. I got to work with a bunch of my friends, and we just had fun with it. Like we just, everything that anyone wanted to, and like I'm pretty loose on set with ideas, right? Like it was very fluid. Everyone had ideas and everyone brought things to the table, and it was like a fun way to create that way, because it was like no idea wasn't tried, and we just kept doing it for, I forget how many shooting days we had. I think we had 27 shooting days in the end with like pickups and stuff. So it was just like, it just kept going on and on. And it was a lot of fun.
Another kind of like two-part question for you. What is one thing from all of this that you learned that you didn't expect to learn? And do you know what? I'll ask the second question later.
Like as a filmmaker, or about food?
As a filmmaker. The second question is kind of about food.
Okay. One thing that I learned that I didn't expect to, the thing I didn't anticipate, because any other project that I've directed, like on the corporate side or like the micro docs, it's like 1 day of filming, 2 days, 3, 4, right? Like nothing's super prolonged. And in the corporate world, you have a client to appease and like it's, achieve their vision too. So it's like kind of takes some of the pressure off. Directing a TV series where like I was the producer, like there was no one else for anyone to ask questions to. So to be that person, like, and I don't often view myself as like that person. Like I'm not like, authoritarian. I'm not like, I don't view myself as the person that knows everything. My wife might say different. She's standing over there. But like, so everyone all the time, like, do you like this? Should we put this here? Do we do this? Do we this? To do that for, 20 some days, it's exhausting. And it's not that, they need to ask me that. I'm the only person that can answer that question, but it's a lot, when you're doing 14, 15-hour days. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. You say that and people are like, oh yeah, 14 hours behind a camera, no problem. I was like, no, because we're running beside the people that are doing the thing, right? We're the first ones there because we have to set up. It's hot. It's 35 degrees. Well, you forgot your water in your truck, so you'd have nothing to drink. It's, it can be exhausting. And so that was probably, I maybe wasn't fully prepared for that at the start. I found my feet there eventually, but
that's fair. Wait till you're old like us and you start having back problems because you've been running around for 14. Yeah.
Well, Emery and I both worked on movies for about 10 years, so we know the days.
Yeah.
So going back to the side question of that, what was like your most fun day? During the whole process, whether it was I always assume it's during the shoot, but what was the most fun day you had making this thing, and what was it that made it fun? What's that story?
Do you want like the nice, the happy-go-lucky one, or like kind of more like the PG-14 one?
I'm good with PG-14 as long as you're good.
Yeah, no, we were maybe like about halfway through the shoot, and we were at this location where we had to drive a lot. So like everyone got up early and it was a long drive, and everyone gets there and we kind of didn't have our bearings at all. Things were not going well. And I don't think anyone was really happy with how things were going. And so like, I just like, called cut, took a pause, like got the crew together, and we just had to talk about it, and like, I think emotions were running high because it was like, nearing the end. Like we knew it was just, it had been a lot. And we kind of worked through that and we had a great day. Like the filming was great. But the next day we had like just like a half day and it was pretty chill. And then so we all, we got Ubers to a restaurant and we all had just a huge meal and had several beverages and just kind of really like, I think that was when things really clicked for us and we knew we were just going to like keep continuing to work together. And and make something. It was just like we had that moment to kind of unwind together, because lots of times you get back at 10, someone's dumping the footage, someone's prepping gear for the next day. You still got to shower and eat. You don't really talk. You just go back to your room, go to bed, and then go back to work the next day. And so it was nice to have like that decompression moment for the crew and me.
So what, going back to that original thing, then what was the food thing that you learned, the thing that maybe shocked you a bit, or that you didn't know about Saskatchewan food?
So the thing that blew me away the most is I'd never had a chanterelle mushroom, and I had no idea that they grew here. And so going up to the forest and just like picking them off the forest floor and eating them, and them being just like one of the most amazing things I've ever eaten, that I had no idea. And yeah, so that blew me away.
That's hilarious. I was telling Nick earlier, I'm like the mushroom one. I've seen those mushrooms all the time. I assume they were poisonous.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you by text that you crushed my soul in this. So this is where you crushed my soul. This is a story that I'm just sharing with you and the world now, I guess. Basically, when I knew you were doing the show, I was kind of pumped about it. I knew it was based off the Chef's Table. I was kind of pumped about that because I was a fan of the show.
The trailer was crazy too when it first came out.
Yeah, everything looked good. I was like, yes. And then I started thinking like, well, how can I get my dirty paws into this show? So I'm like, well, it's flat out food, but what they don't have is booze. I'm like, that's the next step. We've had all this booze stuff. Play episode 1, starts talking about whiskey. I'm like, what? Oh man, there goes my chance. So,
yeah.
What was that like copying Chef's Table and trying to bring all those other elements together, from the producer to the alcohol or beverage to food, and then bringing it all together at the end? Was that a challenge?
Yeah, so like I love Chef's Table so much. So I mean, everyone, like, you see we'll call it an homage to Chef's Table.
Copying.
Yeah, it's not quite Chef's Table. Like, it's set up a little different, and that's why I kind of think like you probably had some difficulties trying to match it.
Yeah, and it's different. Like that, like they focus so much on like the individual personal journey of the chef. And the one thing that my one criticism of Chef's Table is it always starts out the same. It's like, I wanted to be a chef. I moved away. I started cooking French, Italian food. I'm not French or Italian. Moved back home, started cooking traditional food. It's like everyone. I still love it, but that's, yeah. So like, so much of that fell on Jen and her book. Like, she had all those stories in. And so from very early on, we knew that each episode was going to focus on an ingredient. And she knew she had met every single person and spent time with them, if not once, multiple times, except for one person in the whole show. And like, so much, like, she's so close with so many of those people, so many of those producers. In the wheat episode, for instance, like, she knows Mark Lozelle like so well. Like, them hugging on, like, that's all genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just they're friends. And so she brought all that knowledge of them and had those personal relationships. And like, lots of times a director will conduct the sit down interviews, right? But Jen would actually conduct them, just because like I didn't have to go in cold, like, hey, like, we spoke on the phone once or twice kind of thing. It's like, Jen's like, this is my friend, and I'm just going to sit down and have a conversation. And then, I would just chime in afterwards to make sure we were getting what we needed to kind of round out the story. But yeah, that was all her and her contacts from the book.
So before we let you go, Adrian, there's one last thing to do. I know Nick's not prepared for it, so I'm going to get the automatic
probably
win.
prepared. Maybe you just go first, and then...
We had a challenge last week, but it wasn't a visual challenge. Or I shouldn't say last week, last time we did it. Do you remember what Robbie's challenge was, Nick?
Oh, I do now. Something about grapes.
We had to see who could stuff more grapes in their mouth.
I forgot about it, to be honest.
For the win. I gotta mark that on the board. I'm gonna put a nice red mark on that just to indicate this time that Nick was a loser and didn't even participate.
Let's see the board, though.
Rushing you, Nick.
There we go.
So we do these challenges. You're familiar with the show. Kind of sucks you don't get to pick one. I blame Nick. But we do need a new challenge for our next episode whenever we end up doing it.
Do you want me to give you guys a challenge?
Yeah, it's not a grape challenge or an eating challenge, but it's usually a
photo challenge,
video challenge.
Because we all know that taking photos we somehow made it competitive. I'm not sure how.
Do either of you guys still have a film camera?
It's really funny you asked that question because I literally just got it and I've been having some problems putting out a video about the first film I shot in 15 years.
I don't. I could borrow Emery's and take a shot on it.
You could borrow it.
It's funny, like with the show, like everything I do, like the whole one-man band thing, like that's my background, right? And you kind of just do everything like good. You don't do anything fantastic. And so on the show, like
story of my life.
on the show, I was able to hire people who are much better at their individual things than I am. And so what I find funny with digital so often, and maybe I didn't appreciate it when I was younger because, I just wanted, video was cheap and easy, right? Like you didn't have to do all those steps with film. But it's like, people will throw fake film grain on stuff or they'll do that. But like, it's the quality of the skin tones that you can't get anywhere else than on film. And all these, like the higher end cameras, the cine cameras, they're all just trying to, copy what film did. And so I always think that that's an interesting thing. It's tough to get your hands on film. It's expensive. It's all these things, right? But I always find like that's like portraiture on film it looks pretty good.
So you're thinking a film portraiture? Is that our challenge?
Yeah, I mean, like just off the top of my head, like I don't know if you have the means to do it. Like if you have a film camera.
Yeah, I've got the little
I
still
like
Nick,
that.
So
that's exciting.
Yeah, we might have to get together and do that. I almost feel like we should do each other's portrait, Nick.
Yeah.
Even better. I love that.
The film that's
great.
loaded in the camera is just some cheap black and white right now. I mean,
That's all right.
I could ruin some frames and throw in color.
No, we could do it black and white. What's it rated? Like is it daylight, tungsten? What's the ISO or what do they call it on film? ASA?
This is what it is. Kentmere Pan 400. So it's 400 ISO, black and white. So your color doesn't matter. Daylight, tungsten, whatever. Yeah, so it's just 400 ISO.
400, nice.
And yeah, it's cheap film. Like I think this 659 at Dawn's Photo, but that's what's loaded in it right now. And I technically haven't shot a frame of what's loaded in it. It's just loaded. So I mean, if we did want to do color, I do have some other color stuff.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that's a good challenge. It'll be fun. And to Adrian, actually, so I got this thing. I bought it off when we were in the hub, and I bought it off a guy from PA. We were talking about it one day. He's like, "Hey, I've got one," and I'm like, "Sweet, I'll check it out." And yeah, checked it out and shot the roll of film just for the sake of shooting it. And now I'm looking at getting like my own developer kit. I'm gonna start developing everything too. And it's been a crazy month, but bought a lens to digitize the film as well. So. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Adrian, where can people find you?
Find me?
Yeah, like all your stuff. Where's haltermedia.com, is it?
Yeah, haltermedia.com. And then Flat Out Food is on citytv.com.
And if they want, they can follow you. You're on Twitter. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, Twitter, Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn even. That's how we started talking about this, right?
I'll throw some links, particularly for sure links to the actual show on the City TV website. It is something I think everyone in Saskatchewan should watch. Watch Saskatchewan content, and go out to these restaurants. Like I've learned of a few. I've gone to like half the places, but there's still a few places. Like Hearth is definitely on my checklist to go to now. Love that guy. Everything he said, I thought he was like spot on. So. Yeah, Adrian Halter, everybody. Thanks for coming on.
Thank
Hey.
you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, Nick, another great interview for us. Adrian was pretty good. It was nice to learn all about their show and
Oh, it was
and how
so
they got
good.
that made.
Oh, sorry. You said you were
No,
going to do
no.
the outro. I come barging in 100 miles an hour.
It's all good. I don't think we need to say much more. I think the best way to end it is to go, I'm Emery. He's Leroy behind the camera. There's always something to do. And this is just two camera guys. Have a good day, everyone.
Good night or good day or good after, whenever you're watching, listening. We'll see ya. Good talking with you, Emery.
You too. So director, Adrian Halter. Producer, Adrian Halter. and Jen. Writers, Adrian Halter. Executive producer, Adrian Halter.
It told me that you were recording.
Yeah, it makes a weird voice thing now.
It's a little creepy. Don't know if I like it. How's my focus?
Your focus looks sharp today. You look sharp today, Nick.
Nice.
Why do you look so sharp today?
Well, because it's the joke, right? Where I've got the dress shirt on up top, sweatpants on the bottom.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Oh, terrible. Your guys' setups look so good. A white wall.
So like, holy cow.
I don't.
Welcome back to another episode. No. Yeah. Welcome back to another episode. My name's Emery. Saskatchewan's Food Bounty. I already botched it. Anyways, our next guest is Adrian Halter.
Oh, no.
So I ruined like all the surprise of like doing
Yeah.
I was half laughing at myself. Like just
Oh man, you really put me on the spot with that. Like, as a, I don't even know. Like, can we come back to that one? Was that like, is that my Zoom account that timed me out after?
No, it's ours because we're cheap.
Yeah, we
I wouldn't pay for it either. If you can't get it done at 45, just restart.
Drew's been hiding books. Yeah. Beside her bed.
That is the best thing I've heard in a long time. Just that's it. So Ruth's been hiding books. Like we would get a good look at all your gray beard you got going on. Which
Yeah.
Nick, it's fantastic. I say don't lose it. If I could grow a beard, I totally would. Did you watch all the episodes?
I watched what I watched.
Part I was like, hey, hire me as your time lapse guy. I'm pretty sure Knack can do better time lapses than me. So I'm not getting that job.
Then it goes.
Cool. I think that's actually a pretty funny outro.
It's just like good night. Doesn't make sense. It only makes sense for us. I usually rely on you to tell me the camera news during these segments, so.
And I've been unreliable lately. So with this interview too, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I don't know. Because there were so many sections. I don't know how you cut it.
Honestly, like that last bit, 100% is what needs to be talked about. Like I almost want to make like a second show of it.
Yeah.
Robbie, you kind of got ripped off there, buddy. This one's for you. Ready? I think that's pretty hard. That's so gross. I think that was 30 though. I gotta clean up.